Good evening, neighbors, and welcome to Candidates Night. We have an exciting opportunity here tonight. It's an opportunity to hear some of our fellow citizens tell us why they deserve our vote for public office. We'll start with the candidates for Board of Selectmen, and later in the evening, we'll hear from the candidates for the Board of Education. Before I introduce the candidates, let me acknowledge gratefully the work of Thompson Together, putting this program on, and also extend our gratitude to those who contributed to the publicity and the refreshments, Democratic Town Committee, Republican Town Committee, and Thompson Republicans. Very good. Now this is our format. Each candidate will have 2 minutes opportunity to make an opening statement. And we'll take the candidates in alphabetical order of their last names. The timer is Mr. Ed Goldsmith. He's in the front row. And for you candidates, he'll be holding up cards indicating how many seconds you have left. And finally, he has an inaudible machine, a device that will tell you when your time has expired. So you got to watch him closely because the sign language is more telling than the visual, the audio. After the opening statements, we will move on to questions submitted by the audience and screened by our screeners, our judges, who are John Lenke and Bill Steglitz and Erica Groh. You'll have 2 minutes to answer each question. As I say, questions will be addressed in alphabetical order. And you'll have 1 minute, each candidate will have 1 minute for rebuttal if that candidate wishes. So are we ready? Does everybody understand the rules? Good, okay. I'll introduce the candidates at this time. First, Ken Beausoleil, candidate for First Selectman. Jeff Bolte, candidate for Selectman. Donald Brown, candidate for Selectman. Amy St. Ange, candidate for First Selectman. Bill Warner, candidate for First Selectman. And Suzanne Witkowski, candidate for Selectman. May I have the first question, please? Oh, right you are. Opening statements. Ken, you're up.
Good evening. I would like to thank Thompson Together for sponsoring this evening forum on behalf of our fellow citizens. I am Ken Beausoleil, the Democratic candidate for First Selectman, and I am here to earn your vote and trust. I have proudly served the residents of Thompson as First Selectman and on the Board of Selectmen for 12 years. I have also served in other capacities in town for over 30 years. As always, I will focus on fiscal responsibility and service for our residents. As your First Selectman in Thompson, I will work with our fire EMS volunteers to correctly fund our fire departments and emergency medical services to keep us well protected. I'll also emphasize safety and security measures for our children at school and at home. I will also be equally focused on our seniors and all residents as well. I'll prioritize work with the River Mill developer to renovate the mill and hold public informational meetings with updates on the progress. We will continue work with the Thompson Business Association, our town's Economic Development Commission, to actively make Thompson a destination location for growing businesses. As First Selectman, I'll maintain a full-time schedule and hours in the Selectman's office and address all issues with respect and concern. I will also be at other board meetings as a de facto member of those boards too. I'm proud to be running with Jeff Bolte for the Board of Selectmen. We hope to be that beacon of light and point Thompson towards prosperity, business growth, and affordability for everyone. I ask for your vote and trust for me, Ken Beausoleil, my running mate Jeff Bolte, and our excellent Democratic candidates on November 7th. Your vote really matters.
Thank you, Mr. Beausoleil. Mr. Bolte, you're up.
Good evening. As stated, my name is Jeff Bolte, and and I'm running for a seat on the Board of Selectmen as a member of the Democratic Party. I'd like to thank members of Thompson Together for organizing this candidates night and the residents attending and watching on Zoom to be more informed about the candidates running for positions in this town. I was born and raised in Thompson, attending Thompson Public Schools from kindergarten through graduation, married to my wife Jessica, and have two great kids, Peyton and Callan, who both attend Thompson Public Schools. I volunteered for so many different groups, youth groups, along with other groups in town. I'm a small business owner who has worked with small businesses in town, including the school here, and in the region, as well as all Fortune 500 companies all around the country. In running for Board of Selectmen, I help to move the town in a direction that's beneficial for all, balancing the needs of the town along with the needs of the people. I feel that with some small changes, we can see huge gains to help not only the town grow, keeping our agricultural and industrial roots, while keeping our taxes lowered to ease the burden on our residents. We have a lot of great opportunities in town, being within an hour of many major cities in New England that we need to capitalize on and make this a premier destination for those. This, and working with our local businesses to see what they need to succeed in town, I'm looking forward to having discussions with them and any resident in town for the future of all our residents and for their wants and needs in this town. This is why I'm proud to be running for the Board of Selectmen with Ken Beausoleil, along with the rest of our Democratic slate. We are the team that will continue to work together for our beautiful town of Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolte. Mr. Brown, your turn.
My name is Don Brown. I've lived in Thompson for 50 years. My wife Diane and I have run the Cornelia School of Sports for those 50 years. The last 21 years, I started Brown Shooting Sports for the Second Amendment people that live in the area. I educated my two children, Daryl and Nicole, in the Thompson system. I also started the football team, which serves Turtelot, Putnam High, and Ellis Tech, and ran it for 10 years with the help of the athletic directors and the superintendents from each school. The team is currently operating as the Quinebaug Valley Pride and is in its 24th year. I'm running for selectman for a number of reasons. We need more out-of-the-box solutions to our education problems. We need more transparency in operations of the town government. We need officials who are more responsive to taxpayer questions. We need a better business tax base to support our town. We need more systematic and orderly approach to infrastructure projects. And we need smaller government that does not seek to change our lives through additional taxation and zoning regulations. I ask that you please consider me for selectman. Please write in my name, Don Brown, for second selectman on November 7th. And please consider the entire slate of write-in candidates as endorsed by the Republican Town Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mrs. St. Ange, your turn.
Thank you, Mr. McGarry, and thank you, Thompson Together, for hosting us tonight. What does Thompson need to know about Amy St. Ange? I am a lifelong registered Republican. Ronald Reagan was my role model growing up, and I was inspired by his speeches throughout junior high and high school. Yep, I was a political science and history geek. In 2017, I threw my hat into the ring to be on the Board of Selectmen. My goal then and now was and still is encouraging a nonpartisan, unified community. When I was elected as first selectman in 2019, I knew that my red colors would be left at the doorway in exchange for being a representative of all the people of Thompson, Republicans, Democrats, independents, and unaffiliated citizens, as well as representing the needs of the children in Thompson, knowing that they are the future of this country and will be the future leaders when I am older and grayer than I am right now. Being first selectman is a balancing act, balancing my own beliefs with the needs of the entire town. My first term in office allowed me to evaluate the needs of the town. What I knew right away was that years of neglect had left the town in severe disrepair. It became my mission to do what was necessary to make improvements in infrastructure. I learned it was a necessity to create shovel-ready projects that could be leveraged toward grant applications to lift the burden and expense from the taxpayers in funding these projects. This meant allocating funds to cover the cost of engineered design plans. I am proud to say we are seeing success in these endeavors. 7 shovel-ready projects, 3 of which have received grant funding and 1 that is already complete. This is just the start of amazing things. The future is bright if we stay the course and refuse to slip back into status quo and past failures. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. St. Ange. Mr. Warner, your turn.
Hello, I'd like to thank Beth Goldstein and the Thompson Together for sponsoring this event. Signs are designed to convey information, and we all spent a lot of money on our signs and frames, except for the St. Ange team. They bought undersized wire frames at Walmart. This causes their signs to flop around, thus conveying information they rather you not think about. They skimp on the basics. Unfortunately for Thompson, this is also how the St. Ange team governed, spending on window dressing while skipping the basics like infrastructure. One of our main development sites is on Reardon Road. Currently, all tractor-trailer traffic must travel Reardon Road south to West Thompson Road because semis heading north cannot make the turn onto Main Street, and the Blaine Road Bridge cannot handle the load. Another major development site is Bell and Corticelli. It is bordered by Route 12, Reardon Road, and Blaine Road. How that property is developed will determine traffic flow in Grosvenordale for years to come. Why then are we spending $100,000 to reconfigure the Blaine Road Route 12 intersection when we know we will need to replace the Blaine Road Bridge and reconfigure that intersection in the next few years to help develop industry at 2 of our main development sites? It is not for safety. If that was the case, we would be redoing the Buckley Hill Route 12 intersection, which is the most dangerous intersection in town. And the new Blaine Road intersection will actually be more hazardous for traffic traveling south on Route 12. Thompson needs leadership that is forward-thinking and has the fiscal discipline to spend our tax dollars carefully. Thompson doesn't need more tax revenue. It needs to spend its current revenue wisely. Don Brown and I pledge to use our experience to keep Thompson affordable for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Mrs. Witkowski, your turn.
Thank you, Mr. McGarry. Thank you for inviting me here to this event tonight and allowing me the opportunity to speak to the Thompson residents. Just to introduce myself, I previously served on the Board of Finance for 6 years. I served on the Housing Authority Commission for 4 years, and I'm currently in my 2nd term as selectman. I've been a Thompson resident for over 35 years, raised 4 children, have 2 grandchildren. My husband Bill and I have been married since we moved to Thompson, or since I moved to Thompson, and he has served on the Board of Education almost as long as we've been married. I have an associate degree from Quinnebog Valley Community College, a bachelor degree in psychology from Charter Oak State College, and I did all that while working full-time and raising 4 small children. Residents of Thompson, are we that far apart? When I look around the room, I see so many familiar faces. I know some of you from meeting you at school events or community events or different meetings we've attended. I know some of you from maybe through Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts and our children were friends. I might have even coached some of your children in soccer, or maybe I had them in school when I was a substitute teacher. We might see each other at Dunkin' Donuts or the transfer station on Saturday morning. When I look around this room, I realize we're all very different. We come from different backgrounds and we have different beliefs and different social networks. But when I look around this room, I realize we aren't that far apart. We all care about Thompson and our community. We all want to see the best for our town. And when we sit down at the table and we talk where we want to see Thompson in the future, we are all not that far apart. When I sit on the Board of Selectmen meeting and hear your questions, I think of us as being on the same team. I will end now.
Thank you, Mrs. Witkowski. Mr. Bolte, you're going to get the first question.
Okay.
Matt, you're going to like this one. With the high cost of fire equipment, with unfunded mandates, what is the plan for fire protection in the town of Thompson? Mrs. Goldsmith is entering the question on the screen. Mrs. Goldsmith, I'll give it to you again. With the high cost of fire equipment, with unfunded mandates, what is the plan for fire protection in the town of Thompson? Mr. Bolte, you ready on that one?
Sure.
Okay.
That's a really good question. First, I'd like to thank the volunteers that protect our town as fire and EMS. They do a very thankless job in town with the funding and everything that we provide. I do know that for the fire departments, for their budget, they put in their requests on what they feel they need to run for this year, or every year for their budget. And with it, you know, it's not 100% funding, so they get, you know, a grant from the town, and sometimes that gets cut. You know, for fire protection in town, you know, that's tough for us to actually decide about. But we can help do our best to help fund the town a little better, and I think one thing that we could look into would be while some people might not agree, maybe a tax district for just the fire departments where each and every resident in town would get to vote on how we fund them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolte. Mr. Brown, you're next. Same question.
That's a complicated question. I was in that industry for 45 years as a rep for fire trucks, ambulances, and that kind of thing, and I've met with a lot of departments all over New England. Fire districts are one way to go, but I don't particularly favor that. The taxation in this town's going to be crazy in the next few years anyway. And I think what's going to happen is you're going to have more cooperation between the departments, more meetings with input from people outside the departments with those departments to try and come up with a shared use of equipment that covers our insurance. We have to make sure that whatever we have is going to cover our insurance so that we don't end up with much higher premiums. And it's going to be a difficult process. It's been going on since I've been in town. For 50 years, they've been talking about this. A tax district is a consideration, but when you add it to all the other taxes that we're going to be asked to pay for projects that are a lot less important, I think the discussion is going to have to take place, and we're going to have a meeting of the minds.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mrs. St. Ange?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. A few years back, just as I was entering office, there was discussion about following the Woodstock model. What the Woodstock model provided, in my opinion, was just an added layer of bureaucracy. It kept the same mechanism for the fire departments to request funds, but with one extra jump through. Back in our June meeting of the Board of Selectmen, all of the fire departments were represented, and they all agreed that a fire that a fire protection district across the entire town would be palatable to them. I received permission from my Board of Selectmen to start pursuing inquiries with our town attorney. As of yesterday, I received the unofficial bylaws, the draft of what the bylaws would be. They will be presented to the chiefs next week. What the fire protection district does, it makes the departments accountable directly to the taxpayers. It puts how the departments are funded right into the hands of the taxpayers where it belongs. That is why so many towns in the area have districts. That way the fire departments can get what is needed. Their buildings are all severely outdated and out of code. Their equipment is terribly dated. As far as their trucks are concerned. Their apparatus, they struggle to get grants to pay for their Scott packs and their turnout gear, and they're always struggling, and we know that chicken barbecues don't cut it. So look for it, there to be a public presentation in the near future. The Fire Protection District is the direction to go for the future of fire departments. It will include a duly elected board of citizens and fire departments that represent on committees to request what funding is necessary, and then it goes directly to the people to decide what the fire departments need. It's the way of the future, and it's what will make sure that our fire departments are adequately funded. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. St. Ange. Mr. Warner, your turn.
Hello, we have a problem with fire departments. As volunteers, they do a great job. Unfortunately, government mandates on the age of their equipment responding to fires is causing a problem. And we have 5 separate volunteer fire departments. The Woodstock model was made to handle individual fire departments because in Woodstock they have 3 independent fire departments as well. One of the things that we have to do with the Woodstock model is start putting money aside and actually have the town buy the fire engines and then lease it to the individual companies depending on who needs the next fire engine for like $1 a year, just in case that fire department or the fire company ever goes bankrupt. The equipment belongs to the town, and then we can take that equipment and move it to another fire station. Right now, if the community would go bankrupt, all their equipment would be out of service because they own the equipment, the town doesn't. And I think that if we use the Woodstock model and start putting money aside so that the town purchases a truck every 2 to 3 years and supplies it to the fire companies, and use the fire advisory board, which we already have, to determine who gets the next truck, that will then solve the problem and will give them the needed help that they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Mrs. Witkowski, your turn.
Thank you so much. Well, this is not Woodstock. This is Thompson. And Amy has kind of rolled out the Thompson model. And the Thompson model is to adequately fund and not control the 5 departments that we have. We have great volunteers at each and every department, and every one of them is vital. And Amy and I both support our fire service and the independence of those 5 departments. We want to make sure and try to keep them independent, not talking about putting them together or anything like that, but adequately funding. During Amy's and my 4 years, we have increased funding to the fire departments for 33%. By 33% over the last 4 years, which is more than what other previous selectmen have done. We changed the abatement to an exemption, and that was something when I first came in I was told we couldn't do. We did that in our first year. And why did we do that? Because before our firefighters were getting taxed on the stipend that they received. So they had to pay their taxes up front, and then in turn, they got taxed again. So that was it quickly changed, and we also maximized the benefit that they could receive. And that was done to entice more firemen or more volunteers to come forward and to be firemen. If I ever, and God forbid, I hope I don't, have to call 911 and the fire department has to come, I'm so thankful that we have families that are willing to volunteer I have a son who's a fireman, so when the call goes out, I gotta say I get a little nervous. I just want it known that Amy and myself support our fire departments, and we would like to see them adequately funded with the Thompson model.
Thank you, Mrs. Witkowski. Mr. Beausoleil?
Thank you for the question. I can speak from experience going back from when I joined the departments in 1974, the amount of money that was allotted to each of the departments. And they did very well modestly with that at the times, but things have changed dramatically. Cost of equipment, the replacement, the OSHA requirements, and the lack of volunteers because of the training over these many years to keep them safe when they're out there. All these costs have added up. We did talk about for many years trying to get the Woodstock model, just like Woodstock did, and it works very well for Woodstock, but it is still part of the town budget. It does go through the Board of Directors to the budget, and the Board of Finance reviews it, and then whatever cuts or additions are made are done through there. Since that time, when I was first, I did do a study with VFIS Insurance and had the departments all look at. In a perfect world, if we were to do a fire service today, it'd be 3 departments, you triangulate them. Unfortunately, this is not a perfect world. We were developed with 10 villages. We ended up with 5 departments. So we have to manage what we have and keep them afloat. Through natural, there was a lot of suggestions that came out of that. The fire departments did start implementing a lot of those different recommendations in order to make them efficient because of the lack of time that they have. With our last budget that we just had, the 2.81 mil increase that was resoundingly defeated, there was $10,000 more for each one of the departments in that budget. Unfortunately, that was removed from the budget, and they were flat funded.
Thank you, Mr. Beausoleil. Does any candidate wish a minute to rebut? Any? Mr. Brown, you had your hand up first. You have a minute.
Thank you. Ambulances are a money-making proposition in most communities. This community fought billing for years and was finally convinced to go to billing so that they could afford their new ambulances. That paid for people to be on duty during the day so that if you had a call, they could take you to the hospital. They bought very expensive ambulances. I know because I was involved, not with that particular deal, but I know what they paid and what they bought. You don't have to buy the most expensive ambulances in the world just because you have the money, but they did. And ambulance billing is something that funds most fire departments. So that has to be taken into consideration too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Anyone else? Mr. Beausoleil?
So with that, I can finish my thoughts. Getting to where we were with the last budget and the reduction, it was clear that we're not going to be able to fund them adequately as needed. It was suggested that night at that meeting that we need to go and consider the fire task district, which means all of us here decide exactly how much we need to fund the fire departments and fund them adequately. One of the things that we can possibly look forward to in the future is that with the fire tax district, there is a possibility if they were to choose, they could also bring back the ambulance service if they so choose, and it would stay under the control. But at least all of the control would be under the fire tax district, the directors, and the voting public to adequately fund them.
Thank you, Mr. Beausoleil. Hands? Anyone? Mr. Bolte?
Our volunteers put their lives on the line every call. We need to fund them correctly to protect them while they protect us. And to do that, I feel that a tax district is the best way to go. That way, instead of 6 people that decide funding with the Board of Finance, Each and every person in our town gets to vote on their numbers every year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolte. Mrs. St. Ange, you had your hand up?
Yes, I did, thank you. So there were two statements that were made by my opponents. The first was that we should put money aside. Second is, let's keep them afloat. No, I don't want to keep them afloat. They're barely hanging on now. That's keeping them afloat. We want to do more for our fire departments. We want to make sure that they have exactly what they need for equipment and apparatus, and that they start to work together in a manner of having buying power, because 5 departments are working together to purchase similar items. Putting money aside doesn't work. In the last 4 years, we've increased their funding by 33%, and last year they were flat funded. Just throwing that kind of money, when they're lumped into the bigger budget, everybody takes a cut. Our capital budget came in less than it was last year because of cuts that were needed. So definitely the Fire Protection District is the wave of the future.
Thank you, Mrs. St. Ange. Mr. Warner, you're up.
Thank you. I have concerns about the Thompson model because 2 years ago, when community had a problem with the ambulances, they came to the town for help, and this administration didn't help them at all. And now we're paying 3 times what we used to pay for ambulances in town, and we don't have as good a service. And last year, when the fire departments asked for an additional $10,000, it was Ms. St. Ange that asked the Board of Finance to cut that out of the budget. That is not giving support to our volunteer fire department. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Mrs. Witkowski, rebuttal?
Yes, I just wanted to talk about the process. The firemen, year after year after year, come into us, and they bring us their budgets, and they tell us what their needs are, and we put it into the budget and send it to the Board of Finance, and somehow it ends up getting cut. If the budget doesn't pass, the fire departments get cut. And unfortunately, that's not helping our fire departments. That's not keeping them afloat. That's not helping them to move forward. So last year, we put forward exactly what they'd asked for, and unfortunately, they got cut again. So our goal with the Thompson model is to adequately fund our fire departments, take it out of the selectmen's hands, out of the Board of Finance hands, and put it in the taxpayers' hands to decide.
Thank you, Mrs. Witkowski. All right, Mr. Brown, the next question is for you, and it's a long one, so I'll read it a few times, okay? What are your plans to assist our town in growing, to increase and encourage development, to assist with our tax base, specifically paving of roads, sidewalks, new businesses, Main Street development, etc.? Give it again, okay? What are your plans to assist our town in growing, to increase and encourage development, to assist with our tax base, specifically paving of roads, sidewalks, new businesses, Main Street development, etc.? Mrs. Goldsmith? You got it?
And I have 2 minutes for this?
You can use both of them if you want. We all set, Mrs. Goldsmith? Yes, okay, Mr. Brown, you're up.
All right, well, you've got development that can take place in a number of different places, downtown, or 395, or the intersection where Route 12 hits 395. You need access to the downtown in order to develop it. There's no access for anything but cars right now to speak of. Your trailer trucks and that kind of thing trying to get to the mill. I understand they're trying to make residences out of the mill, but the money that's going to be generated there is probably going to cover the police department they'll propose after that gets open. So I don't think that there's going to be much tax money that's going to be generated by that. So I think we live in an area that is 4 hours out and 4 hours back for a truck to haul things. Distribution is where we should be expanding our economy, I think. Access to 395 is a project that's probably long-term, but that's where I think we should be. We can reach 70% of the population in New England with a one-shift truck, 4 hours out and 4 hours back. Warehouses average about $1 million. A warehouse, for a small warehouse, they go much higher than that, of course. But that puts them in the top 20 taxpayers at $1 million in the town of Thompson. I know because I'm in the top 20 taxpayers in the town of Thompson, and I know what I have to pay. So there's a lot of things that we can do in that direction. Short term, we can do some of the things like maybe turn the apartments into senior housing instead of, I'm out of time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mrs. St. Ange, your turn.
This is a tough one because there's a lot that I can share. As far as assisting with development, we recently passed the VAD ordinance, vacant, abandoned, and delinquent properties. We're already utilizing that, not only for 929, but for another business that is going to be occupying a former vacant space. That's incentive to get businesses to come to Thompson. So we are actively working on development. As far as paving roads, 2 weeks from tonight, in the Library Community Center, there will be a presentation on pavement management and what are the steps the town needs to take now to ensure that our roads not only are repaired, but that they're maintained into the future. Main Street development, back in the spring, it was last fall, while we were still without a public works director, I appropriated funds for engineered design plans for Main Street. We are now utilizing that to leverage the shovel-ready project for a grant that will assist in redeveloping our Main Street area, which will additionally attract businesses. We all talk about, even when I first became first selectman, it was distribution centers. Well, what we've come to find out is that what's lacking in Thompson? Water, sewer, gas lines. We recently had a meeting, finally. I've been hounding Eversource for the last 4 years. We finally, because there was a manufacturing company that wanted to come to Thompson, we met with Eversource. It's a $7 million buy-in to get gas lines only 2.5 miles into Thompson from Putnam. So these are the roadblocks that are ahead of us. But I will continue to fight to try to get gas lines here and get bigger business here that will help really alleviate the tax burden. In the meantime, let's focus on those small businesses because that's the heartbeat of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. St. Ange. Mr. Warner, your turn.
Thank you. About 20 years ago, I was on the chair of the Economic Development Commission, and we did a study in town, and what we realized is when they put in 395, they never made the south exit both north and south. So what we really need to do is we need to work with the state to get the south exit to be both north and south so that Route 12 has highway access to 395. Because along Route 12 in the south part of town, we do have water and sewer and electricity. And we don't have gas, but we have the other three, and that's what companies look for. They look for places with easy on-off access to highways, as well as utilities. The land that they have that's currently industrial around Lowell Davis Road has nothing there. Doesn't have access, doesn't have utilities at all. Nobody's gonna develop that land. Even Reardon Road, it has a railroad site, but it doesn't have any utilities over there. So that's having trouble developing that as well. And we all know that residential development, you only receive $1 in, for commercial development, you receive, for every dollar of taxes you receive, you'll actually only pay out about 40 cents in benefits. But for residential development, for every dollar you receive in taxes, you pay out about $1.30 in revenue, in services. So just by focusing on residential development and residential development only, it's going to be a losing proposition because it's just going to make our taxes go up higher and we're going to get less services. So we have to look at what we can do to increase and make Thompson more better for companies to want to come and relocate here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Mrs. Witkowski, your thoughts?
Yes, when Amy and I first took office, we kind of did a survey of the town and what was lacking and what had been not taken care of so much. And there was a lot, and we've made some great progress. The town hall has come a long way. We've had to update some of the IT issues. We've worked to combine services to help strengthen just the foundation of our town. We've worked with EMS and our fire departments because in order for us to have a stronger infrastructure, we need good safety services. We work with our school. We now have a great communication with our school to help strengthen our school. That's a huge part. And road reclamation, Amy has been working very closely with the DPW to work on a plan to have an assessment done so that we have new equipment. Recently, we received 2 new 9-ton trucks. That helps to strengthen our DPW. I think they're very excited over there. We have to look at 395 and the exits. We know that. We've been talking about natural gas for 4 years now, and that's really vital to our growth. And I don't think that's I think that will happen. I don't think that's just a wish or a dream or something. If Amy sets her mind on it and we all work together, we can make that happen. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Witkowski. Mr. Beausoleil, your thoughts?
This is a great question. I wish I had a half an hour to talk because I could fill that up and then some, because it's a never-ending conversation. When I became first selectman 8 years ago, as we know, we were a mill town. We started looking at what do we need in town. I started the branding initiative, and we had committees that got together, and we did the pros and cons of who we are and who we wanted to be, and to capitalize on those items. And a lot of that came out of it. While big business is great, we are a small business community as we currently are set up now. So we started to capitalize on that, working with the economic development, and we started to make some great strides. During the course of that, a developer came in and said, I'm going to take the mill down. Having seen what buildings look like, there was just no way that we were going to take the 929 mill down. It didn't make sense. So the town rallied. They showed a lot of support. Even though it was started 7 years ago, it is moving forward, as you've heard so far this evening, and with some of the meetings that we've had over the years. It will come to a conclusion for residential and small businesses within that as well. The Quinn Church Shop is another property that is going to be redeveloped. It's in the process. The developer has had some delays, but he's also taken on another 152 acres for another development where the mill pond is. We continue. One of our biggest challenges is our 98 miles of road, and they were in various states of disrepair. We've made every selectman out there, we do as many roads as we can with the money that comes in. There is no doubt about the infrastructure that we need. Business as well.
Thank you, Mr. Beausoleil. Mr. Bolte, your thoughts?
It's a good question. On the minds of everybody, obviously. In terms of development, as stated, we're a small business community. We have agriculture. We had some industrial at one point. Having warehouses, I don't really see a place where we could actually put any. We really need to work with the Thompson Business Association to see what they need, because we have businesses in town that are working out of their homes. They grow, they need bigger spaces, and we really don't have a place for them. So if we can find places like that for them and what they need, that will help our town as well. And that will also help bring in other businesses along with other people coming in to visit those businesses and spend money elsewhere in our town. Improving the roads and sidewalks, that's kind of pretty much a funding issue. You figure, I see it cut in the budget every year. It's very difficult to keep going. The DPW is doing the best they can. They find the roads that need improvement, and they do what they can with what they have. In the end, we need to work with planning and development, to figure out a plan to help our small businesses, also work on bringing in a little bit larger businesses that can assist our tax base as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolte. Does anyone wish a minute to rebut? Mrs. Witkowski, your hand was up first.
I also failed to mention that in the 4 years that we've been in office, we have met with Nutmeg Container, and they have offered us land for an industrial park. But it's kind of difficult to develop an industrial park when you don't have natural gas or some of the utilities that you need on that end of town. Unfortunately, Amy was just made aware that natural gas cannot come over the border from Massachusetts, whatever the regulation is. So it makes it a bit of a challenge to try to develop that area, which would be very nice.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Witkowski. Anyone else wish to rebut? A minute, Mrs. St. Ange?
Thank you, Mr. McGarry. So persistence is everything. It took us 4 years to finally get Eversource to sit down with us. I've also reached out to the state DOT in regard to opening up exit ramps near Anya on 193. They haven't been super responsive, but I believe in persistence. Most recently, I was bugging DEEP, D-E-E-P. As we know, Little Pond area is all private roads, but there's a state boat launch. There's also a state boat launch on Quadic Town Farm Road in the Quadic State Park. The state maintains that road. Finally, we have gotten a positive confirmation that the state is willing to cover the cost for paving the roads in the Little Pond area, and we're working on those estimates now. I believe in the future of Thompson. I believe if we're persistent with what we want and what we need, we can get it and we can achieve good things together.
Thank you, Mrs. St. Ange. Anyone else? Mr. Warner?
Yes, thank you. It was the asset that Thompson had of two rivers cutting through the center of Thompson that made us a mill town and gave us the growth that we had in that industry. There's no longer any real need for water power other than for power generation, and we should look at that as well. But it's also with 395 cutting through the center of Thompson, we should use that as an asset and try to develop the land that has the utilities on it, that has water and sewer, because it's not only just warehouses that we could put in, we can also do equipment and engineering service companies, because being in the center of southern New England, it's very easy to, from here, take a call that we have to go up to 128 and fix something, and then the next day you go and take a call down to Norwich or Hartford. It would be very good, and we're in a good position to use that asset. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Anyone else wish to rebut? Mr. Beausoleil?
To elaborate a little further, one of the other things that we've been doing in the town, P&Z has been very influential in it. They redid the zoning regulations for the Route 131, Route 12 corridor, which is part of the commercial zone, which is also going to help with commercial. We put a lot of building blocks into this. Now we have to get out there and market what we have. The Reardon Road quarry that we do have three-phase power over to there. I did apply for a grant to run sewer. Unfortunately, we didn't get the grant, but that is another one of those items that is needed over there, as well as water. We'll continue to work with that. The quarry itself is probably about 10 years away before it can be utilized. You have the rail service there, which is very needed in order to ship stuff in and out commercially, and it'll be a great advantage when that does come online eventually.
Thank you, Mr. Beausoleil. Anyone else wish to rebut? No? Okay. Next question is for Mrs. St. Ange. Looking forward, what do you think are the biggest issues facing our town in the near future, and what would you do to address them? Read it again. Looking forward, what do you think are the biggest issues facing our town in the near future, and what would you do to address them?
This is a really broad question. So, biggest issues, obviously holding line on taxes, keeping taxes steady while still making progress and improvements in town. Something that the St. Ange Witkowski team has been very successful with. Over the last 4 years, we have stayed well under the rate of inflation, while still, like I had mentioned in my opening statement, while still creating 7 shovel-ready projects, 3 of which have received grant funding. 1 is completed already. We're going to keep doing those types of things. On a more social issue, something that we're going to have, so that's big as far as economics-wise. On the social realm, we are going to be facing more issues with homelessness, I believe, especially if the rate of inflation continues to rise. We recently were working with Teague. My office was working directly with Teague to relocate individuals who are homeless. That's probably my biggest social concern for the future of Thompson. And again, continuing to work together with Teague on fundraisers. The town contributes to Teague. That's what I think is probably 2 of the biggest issues that we'll be facing.
Thank you, Mrs. St. Ange. Mr. Warner, your thoughts, please?
One of the biggest problems, issues we're going to be facing in the near future is our economy. Things don't look good. It looks like inflation's going to be around for a while, and we have a lot of people in town that are having trouble making ends meet. And one way we can help them is to be good stewards of the public funds and the taxes that we charge them. And I think we have to try to maintain low taxes when there's a bad economy. When there's a bad economy, it's not time to go out and spend and do other things, or at least to spend money unwisely. I mean, we spent over $300,000 this year chip sealing roads. Some of them needed them, but the engineering rule of thumb says you chip seal a road when it's 8 to 10 years old. Now, the engineering rule of thumb says some roads will have to be done sooner, some roads will have to be done later. We did all the roads that were paved about 5 years ago, all at the same time. It looks good, but a lot of it's just wasted money because some of the roads needed to be done, but there were many roads like Ridge Road and Gorin Road and that have very little traffic, and they didn't need to be chip sealed probably for another 8 to 10 years. Doing them now makes them look good, but it's a waste of money. And that's being poor stewards with the taxpayers' dollars. And I think with the economy the way it is, we have to be better stewards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Mrs. Witkowski, your turn.
Some of the biggest issues facing our small town today are inflation, rising costs. The cost of education is a huge factor because with all the state mandates and the state control, we are limited in what we can actually spend and what we can decrease in that budget. That's a huge issue. I think in our future, we have to keep an eye out for crime. And I think that can be an issue. Keeping our taxes low, that's a valid, very important issue and concern, to be able to spend our money appropriately and to not waste money. In everything we do, we consider the taxpayer. That's you. We consider every single person in Thompson and try to make sure that we are getting the maximum out of the dollar that you have to pay in taxes, because along with you, we pay them as well. State mandates are real. You know, we keep receiving more mandates on state issues. Even the fire departments feel that, the DPW, but we don't receive funding for that. And the state funding, they keep reaching in our pocket, but they're not giving a lot back. So those are some of the concerns I have. Spending our dollar the way it should be spent. And that is one thing that we have tried to do by combining services and utilizing the resources that we have to keep your taxes low. I think those are some of the major concerns that I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Witkowski. Mr. Beausoleil, your thoughts, please.
There's a lot of things that the town needs and that we're going to be facing in the future. One is housing. We all want to see our children stay in the town and where we've all grown up, and they're going to need a place to stay. Hopefully, when the mill is done, that'll be another section of housing, as well as some affordability that will go in there. We also have to look at our seniors that are now leaving their homes because of various reasons of economics or losing a spouse. Where can they go? We need to find housing for them as well, so that way they could stay in town where they've lived all their lives. The budget is always a main issue. We as a town has neglected from time to time. We need to put out a budget that is forward, that tells what their needs, and then work with the Board of Finance and with the taxpayers in order to accomplish what we need to maintain what we've already done and not let it go bad. Those are a lot of the things that we have difficulty with. We need to continue to invest in our school system as needed to keep up with mandates, because our children are our future, and we want those children to stay in town to become the leaders that we are here, trying to make the town better. Roads are always an issue. We've got 98 miles of road. We do the best. We have a lot of bridges that need to be done as well, and those things change. We have to look at whatever grants that we can get, and those other projects that we can't take out of the budget, hopefully there'll be a grant that we can do and do those necessities. We see with the continuation of how Teague is growing, they're looking at putting addition on because they've outgrown the building that we never thought they would have outgrown because of the needs of the community.
Thank you, Mr. Beausoleil. Mr. Bolte, your thoughts, please.
I'd say the last two questions that we just had were part of it. You know, the fire departments and, you know, just everything in town that is falling in disrepair. You know, the budget is always going to be an issue. We have underfunded pretty much for the last 10 years. Part of it's, you know, on what we need and what we don't need, and a bunch of it is just, you know, we can't afford it. You know, the cost of education is only going to go up. The state has so many mandates out there right now where, you know, they're not funding them. So one way or the other, we got to find a way to keep the school in check, as well as, you know, keep the kids learning, and, you know, in the end, they're our future. You know, inflation, obviously, from what I was reading in the last couple days, it is slowly declining right now, so maybe we'll see something out of that. But in the end, we got to grow our tax base. That way we can minimize the taxes for our residents. And, you know, part of that was from the last question, where we're bringing businesses, you know, to grow our town. You know, bringing in more people, you know, the housing, we got the mill complex coming in. You know, eventually we'll see, you know, more residents in town that are paying taxes on their property. Yes, there'll be, you know, some more students in the system, but everybody complains the system doesn't have enough people, students in the system. You know, if we can continue on our path right now, where we're underfunding every year, we may not have a town left to, you know, call our own. So in the end, we need to, you know, look at what we need to do, you know, work on the purse strings and, you know, make it happen and make Thompson better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolte. Mr. Brown, your thoughts, please.
Education is the biggest expense we have in our town. It's by far. It's the biggest black hole we have in our town. We need to look set up a committee that I would say would study, be set up by educators and the public, and have some input about possibly closing the high school. It has a terrible record, and it has a high cost per student. And there are other schools in the area that have done a better job, have higher ratings in the state, much higher ratings. We're in the bottom 10%. They're in the top 10%. And I think that if we had a committee set up, we could send our kids there to get a better education right now instead of having to wait another 20 years of nitpicking to try and get it done, and possibly convert the high school into a tech school. There's been a lot of interest in that kind of thing by Electric Boat, which has been advertising on television, if you watch the local channels, looking for help that they can't get from the current tech schools. They don't have enough kids, unlike Ellis Tech's got a waiting list to get in. So I think it would behoove us to at least set up a committee to study that and find out if that might be a quicker solution to get some good education for our kids, and open up the possibilities of helping other companies in the area, not just Electric Boat, but others that need talent that could be coming through those schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Does anyone wish a minute to rebut? Anyone? Mr. Bolte.
I know in the past 5 years, maybe even 6 or 7, the school's done a report, probably once or twice, looking at some of their other schools out there. And it would be much more expensive for us to send them out rather than keep them in. I know one out there, everybody wants to send their kids to Woodstock Academy. Looking at the rankings, they are 5 spots ahead of us at the moment, and our high school is only growing up even better. And including our new superintendent, well, can't say new, she's been here many years now, are working on many different pathways to increase the offerings to our students, which includes a welding program, thanks to Electric Boat, also a culinary program, and many others that are in the works at the moment. So therefore, some tech programs are coming into our system to retain our students and even bring in more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolte. Anyone else? Mrs. Witkowski, a rebuttal?
Our students are not a black hole. That the school, our public school, is one of our biggest assets. Outsourcing our school would cost us far more than keeping it in-house. Our studies have been done in the last couple of years. We do one about every 5 years. And what happens with outsourcing your students is you lose control. You lose control of the funding and the education. So sending your child to the next district sounds like a great idea because they have great results, but maybe they're not going to have great results when they add our students in. That is, I've always fought for education, and I'll continue to fight for public education in our town. Our kids are our biggest asset. Our school system in-house is one of our biggest assets, and we need to continue supporting our schools.
Thank you, Mrs. Witkowski. Mr. Warner, your rebuttal?
Yeah, well, first thing, I don't think putting our students in Woodstock Academy would drop Woodstock Academy's ratings. I think they would go up. As far as taxes, the increase in spending for the term, Ken's last term, over his 2 years was $550,000. Over Amy's first term, it was $1.037 million. In her second term, it's been $2.272 million, and she wanted $4.6 million. We also have to be careful of next year's tax increase. We haven't even gone through the budget cycle yet, and we already know it's going to be a 0.8 to 2.2 mil increase. That's $144 to $395 for an average taxpayer. if the HVAC gets a grant, which they put through, they just put it back through. We did get a grant for the track, and they're looking for a grant for the security, which is good, but the HVAC is the biggest portion of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Anyone else? Rebuttal, Mr. Beausoleil.
Just a couple of more things. The school, we just had the cafeteria culinary program that just opened. We had a great tour of the building. They are doing a bunch of different technical school shop type classes that give the kids an avenue to pursue in the future, which is fantastic. They're doing an outstanding job. One of the things that we do need to do, and I was talking with the Deputy Commissioner of Education from the state, we need to start approaching the state. We need to get a hold of our Washington representatives to get the funding that we need in order to offset those costs for the schools. They've got to step up. If they can do this with, a variety of things and immigration, et cetera, they can educate our kids. We need to do this. We need to push them. And the state, as well as all 169 towns, need to push that and push that up through with them.
Thank you, Mr. Beausoleil. Anyone else to rebut? Mrs. St. Ange.
Thank you, Frank. I wanted to just correct one thing in particular about the chip sealing. I remind everybody that that is not factual information. Come to the pavement management seminar presentation 2 weeks from tonight, because you'll get the truth about why we chip sealed those roads. It was recommended by an engineering firm. Additionally, as far as what the St. Ange Witkowski ticket has done over the last 4 years is we have implemented major cost reductions from a shared IT department between us and the school, shared phone services, which saved us thousands of dollars alone every year, shared electric and fuel contracts, shared human resources and finance director. The school and town are working together instead of standing alone and fighting against one another, and we've made a difference. We have saved thousands of dollars. So it's not that we're spending money, we're being wise, and we are investing the town's money to better it in the future.
Thank you, Mrs. St. Ange. Does that conclude the rebuttals? Mrs. Goldsmith, how are we doing for time? Do we have time for another question? No? Too bad. Closing remarks? How much time for each closing remark? 1.5 minutes for closing. I think it's Bill Warner's turn. Mr. Warner, closing remark?
Oh, I was expecting a question.
Well,
Okay. We talked on a lot of issues tonight. Basically, Dawn and I are running because we want to see economic development in town. We're concerned about a lot of people that are just barely getting by in town. People that are over 65 and older. The new study came out that says they're not going back to restaurants like they used to before COVID hit, and that's because they can't afford it. They can't afford to see their taxes go up another $25 a month. Someone like me, it doesn't matter, but I'm concerned about my neighbors and friends that can't, and that's why I'm concerned about the spending in town. And I think that we have to be very careful with how we spend the taxpayers' money. And we do know that we have the HVAC program, that if that comes, that's gonna be a big expense on our town. When they first did it, they said it was gonna be at a 4% interest rate. It's probably gonna be closer to 6 or 7 if we're lucky. It may even be more than that by the time the program gets underway. And we're gonna be paying that for 20 years. And I just think we need to focus on getting more development of industry and businesses and less on residential. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Warner. Mrs. Witkowski, closing remarks?
Well, this has been an interesting evening. I want to thank everyone who helped to plan this and put this together. It's always a great opportunity for us to come and meet with all of you and for you to hear what we have in plan for our future. You have a big decision to make on November 7th, and you've been given a lot of information tonight. So I hope that when you go to the polls, you'll consider voting for Amy and myself. We want to continue to move Thompson forward, and we want to continue to try to keep your taxes low and spend your money wisely, because it's your money, not our money. We have a common sense approach. We're sensible, we're reasonable, and we're dedicated. We're not running for the title. We're not running for something to do. We're not running with a personal agenda. We are running because we want to help keep Thompson moving forward and keeping it affordable. We want to see our town continue to thrive, but still remain quaint and small. So I ask that you vote on November 7th for St. Ange Witkowski and all of the endorsed Republicans on the ballot on line 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Witkowski. Mr. Beausoleil, closing remarks, please.
Let me again thank Thompson Together, our gathered voters, taxpayers, and other candidates for participating in this informative event. I think tonight has served to identify many different ideas as well as what each of us brings to the table in wanting to serve Thompson for the next 2 years. My earlier stated goals for our personal safety, the River Mill complex development, economic growth, efficient government coupled with friendly and respectable service to our residents clearly demonstrate a well-thought-out agenda. My proven experience over the years are exemplary evidence that I am the leader that can be counted on to be there working for you. Please allow me to be your public servant that we all want and expect to have in office. I always believe that we are here to serve you, the voters and taxpayers of Thompson, and not for you to serve us. The Thompson Democratic team of candidates and I humbly ask for your vote and trust. Thanks again for your valuable time, and please remember to make your vote count on November 7th. It's your day to be heard.
Thank you, Mr. Beausoleil. Mr. Bolte, closing remarks, please.
First off, I'd like to thank everyone that's here listening in to all of us discuss what we have for ideas. You know, everyone has an idea on what our town could and should be. We all need to work together, compromise to move forward. We have a wonderful town that can be the epicenter of the region where we are nearly an hour, again, from all major cities in New England. We need to tap into our location to bring in new residents along with businesses that could benefit from our location, as well as work with the Thompson Business Association and our current small businesses. Along with this, we need to look toward the future, work together, help develop our underutilized areas, which we've discussed tonight, helping every single resident in town. With that in mind, I'm happy to be running with Ken and the rest of the Democratic team, who will continue to work together with everyone in town for our town of Thompson. So please come out and vote on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolte. Mr. Brown, closing remarks, please.
I'd like to thank Thompson Together for putting this all together. I'd like to thank everybody that came tonight and those that are watching on the computer, my favorite thing. I've been a conservative Republican my entire life. I believe in small government, good education for our kids, fiscal responsibility, good roads, and security for Thompson residents. Been on Thompson's Economic Development Commission, Small Cities Advisory Board, president of the Thompson Police Athletic League, a Justice of the Peace, and currently senior serving constable in Thompson. I'm also pro-Second Amendment. If elected, I promise to use these principles to guide the administration toward the best interests of all the town residents, and I'd appreciate your vote on November 7th, and all of the other write-in voters, I'd appreciate it if you'd vote for them too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mrs. St. Ange, your turn.
Hey, thank you, Thompson Together, and everybody that came out tonight. In closing, I ask you, do you want to continue moving forward? developing our economy, improving infrastructure and services while finding ways to reduce costs and hold the line on taxes. Remember, in the last 4 years, we have kept that budget well below the rate of inflation, yet we still accomplished a lot. St. Ange Witkowski has maximized our return on investment by thinking beyond what is immediate towards what is needed into the future. We will continue to make strides with a pavement management plan for our roads, improving fire service by introducing a fire protection district, continuing to set aside funds in advance to cover the cost for engineering work to create more shovel-ready projects that can be leveraged for grant funding. And as new needs and issues arise, I will be on top of it, finding solutions to these issues rather than just hoping they go away. There are some people who think only about cutting a budget. As first selectman, my focus is managing the budget and having a plan for the future. St. Ange Witkowski has a 4-year record of moving this town forward. Why would we turn back? On November 7th, Suzanne and I ask for your vote. Help us continue the work we started. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. St. Ange. Mrs. Goldsmith, is there any more business to come before the meeting?
Everyone should go out and enjoy the refreshments in the lobby.
Enjoy the refreshments in the lobby, but before you leave, I just want to say to the candidates, you've made me very proud and grateful to be a citizen of a town that has such high-quality candidates for public service, and I applaud you all, every one of you. Beautiful. Thank you. Let us adjourn for refreshments and return for Board of Education presentation. Will the candidates please take their places? Will the Board of Education candidates? Thank you. Thank you. Can we resume the candidates' night, please? Can we resume? Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back to Candidates' Night. We have before us candidates for the Board of Education. And before I introduce them, I'll briefly review the protocol for this evening. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement. And then we will have 3 questions screened by our panel of question screeners, John Lenke, Bill Steglitz, and Erica Groh. Then the questions will be posed to the candidates in alphabetical order, and each of the candidates will have an opportunity to speak first, so we'll rotate in the order in which we ask the questions. You'll have 2 minutes to answer a question, and then 1 minute to rebut if you wish. And after we have dealt with the 3 questions, we'll allow each candidate to make a 2-minute closing statement. Are we all clear on the format of the questioning? Good? Okay. I'll introduce the candidates for Board of Education. Mr. Peter Fosher, Kathleen Herbert, Cheryl Honyak, Lois Robin, Kristen Schultz, and Justin Young. So if we're ready to proceed, I will first hear the opening remarks. Mr. Fosher, you're up.
My name is Peter Fosher. I'm a lifelong resident of Thompson. I have 2 children who went to the Thompson school system. In 2 years, I will have a granddaughter entering the school system. I believe in community involvement, trying to make it better than when you got there. I think we should all be focused on that. Like I said, I do believe in volunteerism. I am interested in seeing that our children get the best quality education we can provide them. They deserve that. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Fosher. Please excuse me, I forgot to mention in the protocol that Mr. Goldsmith will be keeping the time, and you will see 3 cards raised with 15, 10, and 5 seconds remaining, and then Mr. Goldsmith will indicate. That's not quite a klaxon. It's barely audible. Anyway, he's got this little beeper that'll tell you when your time is up. Okay? All right. Mrs. Herbert, your turn.
Good evening. Thank you, Thompson Together, for sponsoring this event, and to all you citizens of Thompson for coming out tonight to get to know me better. I am Kathleen Herbert. I currently serve on the Board of Education and have done so for nearly 12 years. I currently serve as chair. I have lived in Thompson for the past 40 years. My son attended Thompson schools. I graduated from Nichols College magna cum laude with a BS in accounting and later with an MBA. I worked for several large corporations, ending the last 21 years of my career as financial director for the largest granite quarrying and stone fabricator in New England. In my working career, I dealt with budgets, financial analysis, and all things related to a company's business, financial business. All this experience I bring with me to the Board of Education. When I first ran, I too was among those who believed that there was waste and some fat in a school's budget. But after going through multiple budget cycles, studying budget proposals line by line, I can honestly say that currently there isn't a dime that isn't accounted for or spent unnecessarily. I have a long history of volunteering and serving on Thompson's boards and committees. I served on the Library Board of Trustees, the Economic Development Committee, and other ad hoc committees at the Selectmen's request. My husband and I have been Teague ambassadors for the past 6 years. I currently serve on the Board of Directors for Thompson's Historical Society, the Turtle Lot Board of Trustees, and the Board of Education. My experience on the Board of Education and business makes me uniquely qualified to continue to serve the citizens and the children of Thompson. There are many new initiatives and much progress is being made in our school district at this time. That is what motivates me to run again for the Board of Ed. Therefore, I would ask for your vote November 7th to return me to the Board of Education.
Thank you, Mrs. Herbert. Ms. Horniak, your
Thank you.
turn.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Horniak, and I'm running as part of the Democratic team for the Board of Education. I would first like to say thank you to Thompson Together for hosting this event tonight. As an alumni of Thompson Public Schools, I grew up here in Thompson. I have 4 children, 3 of which are students here at Thompson Public Schools. I have always strived to be an involved parent and volunteer in the school when I have available time. I am the current president of the middle school PTO. I believe I know the issues that parents and community members are concerned about. This year, parents have expressed concern about staff retention, budget, test scores, and security. Budget concerns are not new to us here in Thompson, and I believe we can work on it. I believe it is not only important to be available to the Board of Finance to answer any questions they may have, we must also be as transparent as we can be with community members. There is room to be creative and to find resources. Over the summer, we lost a small handful of staff that had a big impact on our small community. Human Resources at the school has cited the main reason being pay. We must work towards being more competitive compared to other local districts. Teachers are the backbone of our school community and are essential to student achievement and growth, which should be the board's main goal. It is important to listen to them and to hear what they are telling us. We need to be able to keep staff long-term. The faculty has worked hard to raise our test scores. They are making great progress as we can see them starting to level or rise. I know that safety of the students and the staff is on top of everybody's mind. As a parent with children in the school, I can assure you safety is incredibly important to me. My goal is to work with the board as a team to make the school as safe as possible. We should often reevaluate protocols to make sure we are utilizing everything we can to make improvements as they are needed. I am proud to be running with the Democratic team along with Beausoleil and Bolte. We are the team that are working together for Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Horniak. Ms. Robin, your turn.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Lois Robin. I've been a resident of Thompson for 8 years now. I have a stepson that graduated at Torah Lot Memorial High School, and I have a little boy who's in the current school system. What I want to do and what I'm hoping for is to work with the Board of Ed to help with the grades and come up with new ideas, fresh ideas, work with finance, to partner with everyone to see where we can do what's best for Thompson and our kids. And I believe everybody up here wants what's best and think that they have the best ideas. No matter who you vote in, everybody's going to do the best that they can. Ultimately, though, I think we need to focus on our foundation. Our scores are low, and they've been low. We have to figure out a way that we can raise them while still supporting our teachers and our school financially as well. And it's a balance. It comes with a community, and that's what I'm hoping for. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robin. Ms. Schultz, your turn.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Schultz. I'm running for Board of Education because I care about the people in this town and want to see them thrive. Quality education supports higher achievement and career pathways. Conversely, poor education leads to higher crime rates, and it's almost double the cost to house an inmate as it is to send a child to public school. These children are our future doctors, firefighters, and of course, teachers. It's our civic duty to appropriately fund the future generation's education just as others did for us. I'm a mother to 3 young children, 2 of whom attend Thompson Public Schools. Like you, I'm worried about the recent budget cuts, teacher resignations, and low test scores. When making difficult budget cuts, we must minimize the impact they have on our children's education. I will prioritize safety, quality instruction, extracurriculars, and vocational programs that keep students engaged and eager to return to school. We need to regularly speak with teachers to collect feedback about working in the district so we can increase support in areas of need and increase retention. Thompson maintained its smarter, balanced test scores through the pandemic, whereas surrounding towns struggled. We are on the right track, and I believe increased student attendance, retention of qualified teachers, and interventions in math and reading will raise test scores further. I've served in several roles in education. I'm a licensed special education teacher as well as a former paraprofessional. I've sat next to nervous parents in IEP meetings, and I've also been that nervous parent talking about my own child. Parent involvement is crucial to student success, as we are their biggest advocates. I currently volunteer in a kindergarten room, and I've seen its positive impact. I'm an active member in the elementary PTO. I believe my experience and qualifications give me a well-informed perspective to serve as a valuable Board of Education member. I will respectfully work with the other board members, the superintendent, and the community to ensure we're developing and implementing policies that align with the state's requirements and provide the children of Thompson with the best possible education. I'm proud to be running on the Democratic team with Beausoleil and Bolte. We are the team that will continue to work together for our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schultz. Mr. Young?
Good evening. My name is Justin Young. As evident by me standing here, I'm running for the Board of Education. I think that in order to vote for someone, you need to get to know them. Here are some quick highlights about me. I'm 40 years old, married to my amazing wife, Erin, and have two children, Bailey, 9, and Clayton, 8, who attend Thompson Middle School and Mary Fisher Elementary, respectively. I was born and raised in Springfield, Mass., went to public high school, junior ROTC officer, Eagle Scout, and a 4-year varsity swimmer. After high school, I went to college at WPI, civil engineering, and in 2006 began my professional career with a very reputable engineering firm as a drafter. I learned that accountability, hard work, attention to detail are keys to success. I have been taught since a young age that community service is something that nourishes the community, and I feel that it is my duty as a citizen in a town like Thompson to give back. Since college, I've gone from being a field project manager with crews from 4 to greater than 40 to several different engineering roles with industry-leading electronics companies. I currently hold the title of Distinguished Engineer Project Management for a major telecom company. Since moving to Thompson just over 6 years ago, I've been involved with the town, a volunteer firefighter for over 3 years here in Thompson, and then to expand my skill base, applied for and was accepted to East Putnam Fire Department. Still a volunteer that supports Thompson, I just don't get to apply for the exemption. In December of 22, I was promoted to the lieutenant position within the department and have sat on the Thompson Building Committee as well as been involved in several town initiatives. Now a little about what I believe in. When I was growing up, we were being taught how to think, not what to think. We had books, heavy backpacks, and we walked uphill a mile in both directions in the snow to school. All right, the last part's a joke. As a parent with children in the school, I understand the pressures on our teachers, that our teachers and staff are under. I understand that it is a delicate balance between budget and accountability. I understand that our students have pressures that are so much different than they were even 5 years ago. I understand that our parents deserve transparency and an ear that will listen when they have concerns. That's a little about me, and I look forward to your questions tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Now we can move on to the questions. Mrs. Herbert, you will be the first to answer. And just to review, Mrs. Goldsmith will enter the questions on the screen. Okay. Here's the first question. How would you engage the community to improve the public school in our community, including containing costs and addressing enrollment? How would you engage the community to improve the public school in our community, including containing costs and addressing enrollment? Containing costs. Containing costs. Containing costs. Containing costs and addressing enrollment. I think we have addressing in there twice.
Okay. Well,
Including containing costs and addressing, perfect. All right, Mrs. Herbert, you had plenty of time to think that one over, huh?
That's a compound question. Right?
Yeah, that's an easy question, I'll admit.
Yeah, that's an easy question, right. Well, we already are engaging the community. We've done this in several manners. We've reached out to the community when we created the Pillars of a Graduate, Portrait of a Graduate, containing costs. We're doing that by cooperating with the town in combining costs. We've done that with the finance director, the IT department, also the HR director, and we are combining, going out looking for grants to finance a lot of our initiatives at the school, and addressing enrollment. Now we've done that by creating career pathways to allow for retention of, hopefully allowing for retention of our high school students. They don't need to go now necessarily to trade schools. We've got the culinary arts program. We've got a welding program now in cooperation with the Electric Bolt. We've got a carpentry program. We have a business program. We have fire science that's going to start again in January. We also have advanced placement and college credit programs that are that we have in conjunction in cooperation with local colleges, and we also have let me see. But we also have other, the CNA program with the Dade Kimball Hospital. We've got a lot of things going on at our school now.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Herbert. Ms. Horniak, your thoughts, please?
Thank you for the question. I think that working with the community and the town in order to keep enrollment high and where it needs to be is definitely important. If we can build a family-friendly town where families want to move and they want to bring their kids, they want to raise their kids, community members want to stay, they want their kids in the school system they grew up in, that's what's going to help our enrollment working with the town. Those are the things that we need to keep in mind. We currently have room for 1,500 students in the school, and we have just under 900. So working with the town on getting families in is going to definitely help fill those seats. We want to keep them here for their entire K through 12 school career. So when they start to drop off in that high school, we want to build programs like they are doing with the CNA and the culinary, the welding, that's going to keep them here. And we can also build those into the community too. I know that they had a program for EMT, and we can work within the community to have these students work in our community. Giving our students a clear path to enter in the workforce or to careers when they go off to college, to career choices, is going to be what helps keep them here and help our enrollment stay steady. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Horniak. Ms. Robin, you're up.
Yes, good question. Some of the thoughts around this, it would be for community, right? We have to engage more with the community. I think hearing more from the parents and the teachers and giving them forums, in different forums, to provide their insight and feedback, right? Teachers see our kids every day. They know a lot of what's going on. And I think in containing costs, right? I think, again, that is a partnership, not just with the Board of Ed, but with the finance department, with the town. It's with everyone, right? To see what we bring in. Is it gonna be a benefit, or is it just gonna be a cost? And then addressing enrollment. I think one thing that we should look at is, are parents taking the students out to homeschool them? And if they are, why? What are we doing that they wanna remove their children? And then see how we can mitigate that. Also, why they're leaving. If they're deciding to take their kids and enroll them in other schools, find out why, and then we can address those issues one by one. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robin. Ms. Schultz? Your thoughts, please?
I think that you increase attendance when kids are excited about learning and they want to come to school, and you do that through extracurricular activities. Don't cut sports and band and theater and the vocational programs and the things that really get them excited about coming to school, where they make the effort to attend every day. I think that a lot of our students are headed for a career right out of school, and I think that that should be encouraged. And even if you decide to go on to college later, there's never anything wrong with having a large skill set and things to fall back on. So I think that we need to keep building on our vocational programs. We have already seen attendance increase with the CNA program. 180 kids signed up for an 80-seat culinary program, so there's definitely room to grow there. And I also think it's important to poll the students and see where their actual interests are, and then partner with local businesses, maybe Day Kimball, and build off the CNA. You can do phlebotomy, pharmacy tech, x-ray tech. There are so many places you can go just with the medical field, and electrical, plumbing, cosmetology, and also the new project at 65 Main Street. It's gonna have resources for kids if they want to start a small business, become an entrepreneur. They can use the gardens and the culinary program. There are a lot of great opportunities happening in the school that I'm excited to see. And as far as budget, I think that we could look into renewable energy, solar panels, where on the top of a hill, maybe a windmill, grants to fund training and programs at the school, reduce paper usage, make use of volunteers, get people involved in the school, and am I over time? And then you can cut costs that way.
Thank you, Ms. Schultz. Mr. Young, your turn.
So Thompson has a lot of, I've only been here for 6 years, but Thompson has a ton of great resources, a lot of them that I've been able to meet. There's Dave Eddy over on Sandam Road, who's got an awesome business over there where he helped to put back together the William Mason House. We've got machine shops all over town. We've got Nutmeg Packaging. We've got talent in this town that has not been tapped yet. So I think reaching out to the community and finding out the skill sets of our community and bringing them into our school. If we've got somebody who's a professional at business or a professional at finance, let's bring them in so that the students, especially our high school students, can hear about that. I know there's the culinary arts program that just started. There's the CNA program. I know I just found out the other day that there's a Pathway to Fire Science program that's going to be starting up. Firefighter 1, or Intro to Fire Science in freshman year, Fire 1 sophomore year, Fire 2 junior year, EMT senior year. That puts these students ready to get into the workforce the day they get out of high school. If they choose that path, that's great for them. If they choose to further it and go to college for fire science, if they choose to do something else with that, that's even more amazing. We've given them the stepping stones for what they need to do next. There are, like I said, there are so many resources in this town that are untapped that we just need to tap to provide them here in the school. I think in terms of addressing enrollment, that'll definitely help with addressing enrollment. And as we increase enrollment, the cost per student will come down. I think in terms of communicating with our students and our staff and our community, we did a lot of the Survey Monkeys during COVID. There was a lot of Survey Monkeys that came out in text, and we were answering that. Ever since COVID stopped, so did the Survey Monkeys. We need to keep that community engagement. We need to be asking our community and our students and our teachers what's going on. In the corporate world, we call it pulse surveys. In the school world, we'll call it Survey Monkey, I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Mr. Fosher, your thoughts, please.
Yep. From what I can understand, we have a lot of great teachers in this school. The kids enjoy going to class, which is a great plus. What we have to do is find out these people who are homeschooling, why are you homeschooling? What are you getting at home that you're not getting in class? You know, get them to come back. Containing costs, I don't really have much information on school budgets, so I really couldn't tell you. But I think volunteering, getting the parents involved, everyone has talents, and to share those talents with students sparks interest. That's pretty much what I have
Thank you,
to
Mr.
say.
Fosher. We'll now open if anyone wants to take a minute to rebut. Yes, Mrs. Herbert.
All right, one of the major costs that we experience
Mrs. Herbert, would you stand a little closer or sit closer to the microphone? Thank you. We're very
One of the
interested.
most, the costliest cost at the school, the costliest part of our budget is special education costs, and this is driven by state mandates. 23% of our budget this year, $4.8 million, is spent on special education. I have been active in reaching out to our state legislatures seeking relief for these costs. We took action and brought in the Bradley program. All right? We also instituted an in-house transition program, which is saving us another $200,000 a year.
Thank you, Mrs. Herbert. Anyone else? A minute to rebut. Kristen?
Yes. I just wanted to finish my thoughts on budget. Going back to what Mr. Beausoleil had said earlier too, letter campaigning at a state and federal level for more funding, because the ESL and the special education programs are consuming a large portion of our budget, and it's mandated that we must fund it. We really need to get after the state to start providing some of that funding for us, since we don't have a lot of surplus budget. I also think that working closely with the Board of Finance and educating them on what the actual education needs are and funding them appropriately and getting the budget to pass is important. Transparency between the school and the community so that everybody knows that we are not wasting money, that every dollar is accounted for, and just more communication. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schultz. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Young.
So the school budget every year comes out. It's a 27-page eye chart. I don't know whoever's had the pleasure of reading it. I think it's like 8-point font, and it's squeezed onto a single page. And there's 27 of them. I've gone through that budget every year. They account for everything from teacher salaries, teachers' insurance, paper clips, for crying out loud, are on that. And one of the biggest things that comes out of that budget when you read it is the special education. And for years, we've been talking about something that Kathleen mentioned, which is lobbying the state. I think we need to form both an internal and external, including citizens, committee to start lobbying the state to help us out with some of these costs that we can't control, that we can't really handle internally. So that brings together community engagement and getting the cost down, is just getting a committee together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Anyone else who hasn't rebutted wishes the opportunity? Okay. We'll go to the next question. It's for Ms. Horniak, and it's a hot button. Share where you stand on the issue of banning books. Please explain your position. Share where you stand on the issue of banning books. Please explain your position. Ms. Horniak?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. With the issue of banning books, I do not agree with banning books. I don't think that this is something that we need to discuss in the school. I think that we are here to make sure children are taught how to think, not what to think, and banning books is definitely on that line of telling them what to think and controlling what we're giving them. We have to give them all the information and trust that we have taught them well enough to be able to make those choices on their own. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Robin, your thoughts on the subject?
Yeah, this is a good question. So I am against banning books. I think the school system should be educating, not determining what our children should or shouldn't read. That should be up to the parents. And being a parent myself, it's something that I think very heavily on. I want to just call out that, you know, a lot of these books that are being banned have been in the school systems for years. And I don't agree with the way that it's going to ban certain books. They've been around for years. Most of us learned from those books. But I do also agree that it's up to parents as well to partner with the school system. And it has to be the joint partnership to say, you know, times are different. Let's educate our children. Let's parent and guide our children. But the school system, I don't believe, should be determining what gets taught in terms of the books that have been around for years.
Thank you, Ms. Robin. Ms. Schultz?
So I believe that knowledge is power, and people should have access to literature as long as it is age appropriate. And I have all the confidence in our school librarians that they know what is appropriate for our children to be reading at what grade level. And for those reasons, I am against banning books. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Young, your thoughts, please?
So we'll get out of the way, right out of the way. I'm against banning books. But in high school, I had a required reading, which was by Ray Bradbury, and it was called Fahrenheit 451. Anybody else who got a chance to read that knows what it's about. It's the government burning of books because they feel the less you read, the less educated you will be, and you can't rise up against them. We cannot do that to our children. As Cheryl said, we have to give them the tools to be able to make the decisions. They need to be age appropriate. I completely agree with that, and I do trust in our librarians and our teachers that they're giving our students appropriate books for their ages. But at the end of the day, I'm completely against banning books, and I think our children will benefit better if they get the knowledge that they need to make the right decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Mr. Fosher, your thoughts, please.
I'm not against banning books, like he said. The material should be age appropriate. Okay, I don't agree with supplying explicit materials to students in school. I don't think that's a place for that. Kids aren't kids anymore. They grow up quickly, and that's due to society. But you can't protect them from everything, but it has to be age appropriate.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fosher. Mrs. Herbert, your thoughts, please?
Okay. I think we all are pretty much in agreement. I do not believe in banning books. I believe they should be age appropriate to the child. It's okay for a parent to control what their child reads at home, but it's not okay for one person to say what my child is going to read. I believe children should be exposed to great literature, which are a lot of books on the banned list are considered great literature, have won Pulitzer Prizes, have won Nobel Prizes. We need to expose our children to a broad base of literature. It's a partnership between the parent and the school. If a parent has a strong objection to a book, please bring it to the Board of Education. And the Board of Education is glad to take that under advisement. That's what we're there for. We're there to help set the curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Herbert. All right, Ms. Robin, the next one is for you. What are your plans to assist? Beg pardon? I have a third question here. Oh, excuse me, yes, quite. Rebuttals. You were all in agreement. How can you rebut each other? Huh? Go ahead. Who wants to change their position?
Additional comments, Frank.
Who wants to rebut?
I have one, and it's not a rebuttal.
Mr. Young, go ahead.
Sorry. The question talks about banning books, but we're in 2023, and if our children want to get access to stuff, they have this thing called Google, and they have this thing called a computer in front of them, and they take it with them every single place they go these days. We need to be teaching them the tools to make the right decisions on those devices the same way we're teaching them to make the right decisions with the books. Age appropriateness. If we start banning certain material, they won't understand what's good for them and what's not. We need to teach them what's good for them and what's not.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Anyone else? Mrs. Herbert.
This is the parent's job. You know, it isn't necessarily, don't put the job on the school 100%. This job is a cooperation between parents and the school. This starts at home and also at school. The school will not put in books that are not age appropriate in that particular library. And as I said, if a particular parent has a problem with a particular book, please bring it to the superintendent and/or the principal, and if they don't get satisfaction, then bring it to the board and we can discuss it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Follow up? Okay. Question from Ms. Robin. What are your plans to assist in and help grow the Career Pathways program? What are your plans to assist in and help to grow the Career Pathways program? Your thoughts, please.
Yep, so for this, and again, as a Board of Education member, it's not just one person that's going to make any big changes. We have to work together as a team. So they've already made great strides in coming up in giving up a lot of new programs for our high school and middle school. I would like to continue to see what else is out there, what could be specific to our area where when kids get out of school, they have a lot more opportunities, right? This way they're not going over to other schools for education, and we can keep it in town. But again, it would have to be a collaborative effort with the Board of Education and the superintendent to see what we could bring in and expand.
Thank you. Ms. Schultz?
Yes. I've touched on this quite a bit in the last question, but I think that not just giving them a bunch of career pathways, but also, I guess, how to actually get into the career and to apply for the job and to know where to go to find the work to actually do. Because I guess if you just have a CNA or you're licensed in something, maybe you still need, you know, like 7 years experience before a business really wants to take you. So I think that really partnering with the local businesses and getting the kids involved right from school gives them job openings right from the start, so they don't have to kind of worry about where they're going to actually go with that. And I think, again, polling the students to find out what their interests are, so not just having a bunch of random things that maybe we think would be great for the students to do, but finding out what they're actually interested in for their futures and trying to get some of those programs incorporated. And as we can see, it's working out really well because culinary, CNA, they're all full. Kids are coming to school, enrollment's up. So I think that we are on the right path and just keep building off of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schultz. Mr. Young, your turn.
So I was one of the initial instructors for the fire science program at Turtle Up Memorial High School 2 years ago. That program has grown to now being a pathway at the school. I think we need to do the same thing with other career pathway programs. Like I said earlier, getting some of our community resources involved. We have machine shops in the area. I'm sure in those machine shops there are drafters. Being able to have summer internships, and I say that, and I wrote it down, but that's hard with that age, the age that they're at, right? We can't necessarily have them employed at that time, but maybe working with some of the local businesses to have them involved for a week or two during the summer, watching what happens in the workplace. For a lot of kids, it's a chance for them, or young adults, it's a chance for them to see what's out there in the world, to see if that's really what they want to get into, or if they want to get into other things. I know there are people in the audience here tonight that are in insurance. There are people in the audience that are in engineering. Get them involved in the school. See if they'll come in and do a career day in the school and show them what their careers are, and then potentially work with some of these companies on, like I said, summer internships.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Mr. Fosher, your thoughts, please.
Well, every student is different. They all have different interests. The key would be to see what their interests are and to guide them towards their goal. And like he said, if they could get in with some small business to get a taste of it, they may not find out they don't like it, but they may turn to something else. And it's just you just don't want them to get out of school and hang around. You want them to move forward and in a positive way, in something they are going to be content doing for the rest of their lives. And it's no guarantee, but you know, like I said, every kid is different.
Good. Thank you. Mrs. Herbert?
Yes, this is a great question because we already have multiple career pathways established at the school already. We recognize the need of students who are not college-bound, and we have plenty at the high school, or some at the high school. We have just established a culinary arts program that I was at the ribbon cutting ceremony for this week. We have a CNA training program that we coordinate with Day Kimball Hospital. We are going to be establishing a scuba training program that we will turn into a scuba welding program that with we co-op with Electric Bolt. We have an engineering pathway. We have a fire science pathway. We have a business pathway. We co-op with Nichols. We have arts and music. I would like to see us reach out to many more colleges, local businesses, and we're working on developing a work-study program with local businesses, and also we can engage with the community to create more sponsorships for these students.
Thank you, Mrs. Herbert. Ms. Horniak, your thoughts, please?
Thank you. So we've all talked about a lot of great things that are happening at the school, at the high school level with the career pathways, but I think one of our biggest concerns surrounding the career pathways is budget. It's always a concern here, and we need to find ways to work around that because budget's going to be a huge factor. So using our town to work on different careers, as we've discussed here tonight, is going to be big. Working with the town, the Board of Finance are also going to really help assist in growing the program. And like Kristen said, we need to offer support, career support to the students that are going through the Pathways program. Because we do have a lot of students that are going to be entering the workforce right out of high school. So we need to also give them a chance to explore these different pathways that we have so that they can pick the right fit for them. And I know, as some have mentioned here tonight, we can do all of this without closing our high school. It's possible, and they've already started doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Horniak. How about follow-up? Anyone want follow-up remarks? Lois?
Yes, so one thing that I do want to call out as well is, I think
Speak a little closer to the microphone. We are anxious to hear what you have to say.
I think we can reach out to local businesses and also do some internships, right? This way, when they come right out of high school, a lot of students, I know myself was a high school student, and what I thought I wanted to do, I decided to change, right? I think some internships in the community could help as well. It could help the business in town. It could also help that student. I just wanted to call that out. I think that's another way that we can help assist with the pathway.
Thank you kindly. Anyone else follow-up? Mr. Fosher?
Scout leader for 11 years. And every month we'd have the theme of the month, and let's say the theme of the month was forestry. Well, you know, I'd have the Army Corps of Engineers come down and speak for a half an hour or so for those that were interested in it. And of course, there was another theme the next month, and you get a speaker from somewhere else to come in, and it gives kids ideas of what's involved and if they're really interested in this particular field.
Good points. Let me see. 1, 2, 3. I think that uses up our 3 questions. Mrs. Goldsmith, do we have time for another? The panel selected it. How can it be anything other than challenging? You've got time. I'm working to see if I can get you another question before we. I offered rebuttal. Did we did rebuttals on the last one. All right, do rebuttal. How much time do you want? Cheryl, how much time do you want for rebuttal? Come on, you're leading the charge. Come on, take some responsibility. How much time do you want for rebuttal?
You took the question off the board.
Some people would like to rebuttal.
They want rebuttal.
Additional comments.
Yeah.
Additional comments, minute and a half. Mrs. Goldsmith, by popular acclaim, an extra minute and a half per. Who wants? Cheryl? Maybe. Cheryl, you're first on the rebuttal thing.
Okay. So I don't have a rebuttal. Thank you.
All right, great. Great. Who else wants a rebuttal? Mrs. Herbert, you want a rebuttal?
Okay.
Go ahead.
It was mentioned, we do have an alumni career day. The alumni come back one day a year, and we have a very good response to that, and they come back and they describe what they're doing and interest kids in what they're doing and describe what they're doing in life after Turtle Rock. Also, we changed the high school's schedule to block scheduling this year to better mirror the other schools, area schools in our surrounding towns. This would allow us eventually, once our career paths really get going, to invite other schools to send their children to our school to enter into our career paths and pay tuition to our schools, which would help fund career paths and more career paths.
Good, thank you. Kristen, you have comments you want to share?
I think, like Cheryl said, that budget would definitely be a big factor in this, and that's just another way to get people volunteering in the school. If you are an accountant, or you're a firefighter, or you have some career pathway that you can come in and present with the students and give them kind of real world experience, I think that that could be really helpful for them, as well as internships, but also having people come in and speak about different aspects of the career so there's more information given to them.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Young?
So I think vocations for a while have had a stigmatism, and we call them vocations, but really they're I consider them launch pads. They're launch pads into college careers. Or careers that can lead to a college degree. They give the student the ability to leave the high school having a way to have a job, having a way to have a path, so that they don't go just into another debt cycle. I think from a funding perspective for Pathways, I think one of the things that we can explore is reaching out to local businesses to see if they'll sponsor it. Will you sponsor a career pathway program at the school? Will you sponsor a fire science program? Will you sponsor a culinary arts program? We've got Day Kimball. We've got so many senior living centers in the area, Maliotakis, Westview. Get them to sponsor a CNA program or a phlebotomy or something like that. So.
Good, thank you. Anyone else? Follow up? Okay. For extra credit, we have another question. Mrs. Goldsmith? Okay. This one starts with you, Ms. Schultz. It's your turn. What's your knowledge of special education regulations and funding? What is your knowledge of special education regulations and funding? Ms. Schultz, please share with us.
So I am a licensed special education teacher in the state of Massachusetts, so it's a little bit different, but so the special education is taking up a significant portion of our budget. That's not going to change. We are federally mandated under the Individuals with Disabilities Act, who every student that qualifies for special ed has to be given an individualized education plan or an IEP, and then we must legally provide the accommodations placed in the IEP. We also have 504 plans at the school, but that's not for specialized programming in the same way that an IEP is for somebody that has a disability. I guess
Okay.
that's mostly
Thank you. Thank you kindly, Ms. Schultz. Mr. Young?
I'm going to be honest, I don't have much knowledge of special education regulations. I do know that there are IEPs and that we are legally bound to provide services to students. And from a funding perspective, and I'm not going to get this exact, so please don't quote me on it, but I know it takes up to a certain dollar amount in the school before the state starts to reimburse us for that funding. So if, and I'm just going to pick a number here, if we've got 10 students that are at $75,000 and the state cutoff is $80,000, we don't get any state help until we hit that $80,000 mark. So that all falls on the taxpayers to help with. And that goes back to my earlier statement, which is we've got to start lobbying the state to get us, to help us more with this extreme cost in the school so that we can provide these services for the students that need them. Because there are students out there that need them, and they do benefit from them. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Mr. Fosher, your thoughts on special
I
education?
don't have a lot of knowledge in this area also. I know that roughly about, 25% of our students need special ed in one way, shape, or form. Not all at the same degree. And state mandates that we cover the cost, that we educate them. And they do a terrific job. I couldn't do it. But that's about all I have to say on this.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fosher. Mrs. Herbert, your thoughts, please.
Yes, well, we are federally and state mandated to meet the needs of these pupils in our school, which can range between 23 and 26% of our population. We do testing on these students at an early age. They either have an individual education plan or a 504 with disabilities. We have to spend 4.5 times the per pupil cost, which at this point is $97,000. And after that, we are reimbursed by the state at a rate of maybe 80% over that cost. That's why we instituted the Bradley program. We brought in the Bradley program into the school, which over its past 3 years has saved the taxpayers $3.5 million. We have our rate, as I said, could be as high as 26% of our population. The state population, the state average of special education students is 16.5%. So Thompson has a high percentage of special education students. Therefore, we spend about $4.8 million of our budget is spent on special education costs. We do receive some funding from the state. Therefore, as I said before, I'm very active in approaching and communicating with our state legislators to help get some relief from that cost. And we could use the community's help to get more relief by communicating with state educators. This is a hot topic in the state legislature right now, especially for small rural towns like ourselves.
Thank you, Mrs. Herbert. Ms. Horniak, your thoughts, please.
Thank you. So I think, just to reiterate what everybody else here has said, that we have a high percentage of special education students here in Thompson, and we have to cover the cost. And if I'm thinking correctly, I don't even think the bulk of our students hit that number that we need to hit in order to get reimbursement. So we're not even collecting those funds back from those students. So like everybody else said, we need to go to the state. We need to start asking for some of this money back. And I think that, as Kathleen mentioned, the Bradley program, getting some more programs like that would be really beneficial to us, because budget is a huge issue, not just for covering the cost of special education, but we need staff in in the areas of special education. We need speech therapists, we need occupational therapists, and we need to be able to offer competitive wages to entice those people to come into our system and stay, so that we can hit those mandates, so that we can make sure we are following these IEPs that we're legally bound to follow. So I think a lot of it always comes back to working on that budget, which is working with the town, working with the Board of Finance, so that we can make sure that every student, whether they're in the regular general education or in special education, is getting every service that they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Robin, your thoughts, please?
Yeah, I agree with everyone here. Pretty much we've all covered it. The students that need the IEPs and the 504s, they have to be done. They need an opportunity to learn as well, and we are bound to serve them. But again, I agree, we have to go to our state legislator and just keep pressuring them. You know, we are a small town and we do have a higher rate of students who need the support. That would be the first and the foremost, right? And then looking into the other avenues that we can. But also partnering with the parents. They can help and reach out as well. I think that is a great opportunity, and it also gets the parents involved.
Thank you. Does anyone wish a minute for follow-up remarks? Mrs. Herbert?
Yes, okay, thank you. You know, when the budget is cut, or our budget increase is cut, request is cut, we cannot cut special ed. That has to stay constant. So the only place the school has to go to reduce their requested costs, and believe me, when we put forth a budget, it is not a wish list. This is what we need. We have gone through that budget, through budget workshops. The only place we have to go is to the regular population, general education. So by cutting our budget request, we have to hurt the regular gen ed budget and other maintenance projects. We have to let the maintenance go. We have to hurt the gen ed population.
Thank you. Follow-up? Anyone else? Follow-up? Kristen?
I just wanted to reiterate that I think that there is a misconception about how much money we are getting back reimbursed from the state for special education. So a student has to cost the district over $90,000 before the state reimburses anything, and then they only reimburse 80% of the cost after that. So any student that's just receiving speech or occupational therapy, or the kids that are in the Bradley program, we're not getting anything for any of those students. So it's really important to remember that and to focus on the budget again, to look to the state for funding. And also the ESL program, so English as a second language, it's probably gonna end up falling under special education too in terms of budget, because it is mandated by the state. We have to provide services to those children.
Thank you. Anyone else? 1 minute follow-up. Anyone? Okay. Are we ready to go on to closing statements? Are you ready? Okay. Mr. Young, it's your turn. You have 90 seconds.
Ready, go. I want to thank Thompson Together, my fellow candidates, and everyone who has taken the time to listen tonight. Our town deserves board members that will listen to everyone, someone who will use their life experiences, their knowledge, weigh all the aspects of the issues, and be able to articulate their answer. Thompson deserves accountability and integrity from its board members. As a member of the Board of Education, I promise to listen, think, weigh all the options, and then make my decision. I promise as much transparency as the law allows. I promise an open ear to anyone who wants it. Our Constitution is the foundation of our great democracy. The First Amendment of the Constitution gives everyone the right to speak, and although I may not agree with you or what you have to say, I will listen and I will factor in what you have to say into my decision. As a member of the board, I will work with everyone, not just those that agree with me or have the same ideals as I do. I want to initiate better communication paths with parents, citizens, with surveys, newsletters, increased community engagement. Our children are our future. We set the example. how we behave, how we teach them how to use the thinking tools. It's up to us to show them how we do it with the integrity and professionalism, and able to defend their thoughts with actions and facts. One of my favorite poets once wrote, "Two roads diverge in a yellow wood, and I took the one less traveled by." I am the road less traveled. I am the candidate that will listen and push for action. I am the candidate that will understand the role of the BOE, and the role of the BOE is basically a corporate board. Our shareholders are our citizens, our customers are our parents and students, and the CEO is our superintendent. It is the job of the board to do what is best for our shareholders, our customers, and hold our CEO accountable for the company they are running. I understand this role and promise to do my best to serve the town of Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Mr. Fosher, your closing remarks, please.
Well, all I have to say is our children are our most valuable asset. They deserve the best education they can get, and it's up to the Board of Education to see that they get it. I know budgets are tough, but, you know, there again, people, tutorials, you know, volunteering. There are a lot of people who are willing to do that, seniors, retired teachers, what have you. There are other avenues, new ideas, but our kids deserve this. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Fosher. Mrs. Herbert, closing remarks, please.
Again, Thompson for putting this together, and you citizens for coming out tonight. I feel I am the most qualified candidate, both because of my experience on the Board of Education, having served on all subcommittees as a member and as chair. I served on the committee that selected Superintendent Smith 7 years ago, who, because of her leadership and direction, we have markedly turned the Thompson School District around and are now headed in the right direction. We have initiated career pathways, increased advanced placement and college credit courses, and will continue to create more. We have implemented a new contiguous curriculum program and improved student test scores. Thompson is now a school we can all be proud of again. We have also increased coordination of services with the town, eliminated duplication of services, and thereby reduced costs to the taxpayer. I want to keep this momentum going. Together with the help and support of the community and town officials, this can happen. The portrait of a graduate, career pathways, and coordinating with the town to achieve cost reduction will only benefit the town of Thompson and the taxpayers. Remember, a thriving school improves the value of your home. So please go to the polls on November 7th and vote for the endorsed Republicans, line 2 on the ballot.
Thank you, Mrs. Herbert. Ms. Horniak, your thoughts,
Thank
please.
you. I would like to again thank Thompson Together for hosting this event, and the audience here and online for taking time out of their schedule to be here and your thoughtful questions. Thompson is a wonderful community to be a part of. The school system is such an important part of the town. I look forward to the opportunity to help it grow. It is so important that we work as a team so that student achievement is at the top of every decision we make and every policy that is written. The students of Thompson Public Schools deserve the best education we can give them. We should continuously be working to make sure they are safe and feel heard. We should always be working on staff morale and teacher-backed policies. It is important to the growth of our students that teachers stay. Together, we can grow a school that we are proud of, where community members want to stay and raise their children. As a parent and as the current middle school PTO president, I take pride in Thompson Public Schools, and I know we can do this. Our town and our children deserve the best. I am happy to be running with Kristen Schultz on the Democratic team along with Beausoleil and Bolte. We are the team that will continue to work together for our beautiful town of Thompson.
Thank you. Ms. Robin, closing remarks.
Yes, thank you. I want to thank Thompson Together and everyone who's joined and come today to hear the different answers, and hopefully you guys have gotten closer to us to understand where we stand. I do want to say, if you are expecting change, then you have to vote for change. Thompson needs some changes. I think our students deserve a change. I think they deserve new ideas, fresh ideas, to build off of what was already been built. One of the biggest things is we have to work on our foundation, and our foundation starts at our elementary school. It starts building that education. It starts building that love for school and that love for education. And then it partners on into middle school and high school, and it partners with the teachers and the parents and the community. And that's why I'm asking you for your vote. I think that's something that I can bring to this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robin. Ms. Schultz, we will give you the last word.
Thank you for Thompson Together for putting on this event, and to the community for coming out tonight and listening to these important discussions. We need to come together as a community to resolve the budget, staffing, and test score issues facing our school. To really flourish as a town, we need good schools and residents to be involved. I know people are busy holding down full-time jobs, and in some cases multiple jobs, but there are many opportunities to volunteer: classrooms, cafeteria, sports, a PTO event. To be fully effective, the Board of Education needs to engage residents, and especially parents, in the process of educating our children, because education is a shared responsibility and our children are not a black hole. And the least we can do is to vote to meet the needs of our children. We can keep taxes manageable for homeowners without turning our backs on the next generation. Change starts with leadership. Who you vote for matters. I ask that you really know where the candidates stand on the issues and vote for the betterment of the town. I'm proud to be running with Cheryl Horniak on the Democratic team, Beausoleil and Bolte. We are the team that will continue to work together for our beautiful town of Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schultz. Mrs. Goldsmith, is there any further business to come before the meeting? No. Well, let me congratulate each of the candidates on excellent presentations, well thought out. And thank you for your kind attention.